Next, we will have our blueprint update.
Good evening, President Claggett, Dr. Townsend, members of the board. My name is Joe Sampson III. I am the coordinator of Maryland Leads Grant and Blueprint for Maryland's Future for Calvert County. And with me is Mr. Joe Sutton, Supervisor of Secondary Mathematics and Chairperson for Pillar 3, Mr. Sandy Walker, Supervisor of Equity and School Improvement and Chairperson for Pillar 4, and Mr. James Kurtz, Director of Student Services and Chairperson for Pillar 5. Today, you'll be provided with an overview of our implementation plan writing for Pillars 3, 4, and 5. Pillar 3 is college and career readiness. And the 4 required Pillar 3 objectives for this year's plan are objectives 1 through 4, which are to provide equitable opportunities to become college and career ready, or CCR, and shall meet the CCR standard at an equal rate, keep students on track to meet CCR, implement CCR pathways, and provide high-quality career counseling and CTE programs. The objectives listed on the slide on the left are numbered, and so 3.1.3 indicates that school districts will implement a fully aligned instructional system in consultation with experienced and highly effective teachers. Our responses are on the right as I go through the slides to the those objectives in the draft, the implementation draft template. So our response for that one indicates that systemic goals are measured through key performance indicators in the CCPS strategic plan, specifically the student outcomes pillar, which includes promoting growth for each student, eliminating achievement gaps, enhancing opportunities for high ability learners, preparing students to transition successfully to post-secondary education and or career-focused options. Among the content supervisors and specialists, supports are provided based on teacher team needs and determined by the master schedule and teacher and team availability. Coaches provide support and to teachers with ongoing job-embedded professional development. Monthly professional learning community meetings for each grade level are also included in that support. 3.2.3 indicates that LEA shall create and implement a 9th grade student tracking system. And our response is that we have formed a team to conduct a longitudinal study of approximately 16,000 students to determine what factors before 9th grade predict failure to graduate on time in Calvert County. Course completion warning flags have been identified as predictive of student failure to graduate on time, such that in the study, students with 0 warning flags graduated 96% of the time. Students with 1 warning flag graduated on time at a 66% rate, and students with 3 or more warning flags graduated on time 32% of the time. And those warning flags include things such as, for high school students, failed an 8th grade core class. With that metric, approximately 70% of students are likely not to graduate on time. And that number is approaching 100% of students for ELA 8. For middle school, D or E, a grade of D or E in math, 6, 7, or 8, approximately 45% of those students are likely to not graduate on time, and that's math and ELA. For elementary, a grade of D or E in ELA in either 4th or 5th grade, approximately 50% of those students are likely not to graduate on time. 3.3.1, provide a CCR support pathway for students. And we're currently exploring culturally responsive lessons, project-based and problem-based pedagogy, and/or varied instructional timing. Students in need of extra support are identified and offered additional support both during and after the school day. Supervisors will work with the specialists and teacher leaders to develop support options for students. And as the definition of CCR is changing, support pathways may look very different than they would under the current single test proficiency model. 3.3.2, high schools offer post-CCR pathways to all CCR students in grade 11 and 12 to earn early college credits and credentials and CTE credentials at no cost to the student. To ensure this, middle and high school students are aware of the pathways, the school system engages them in multiple activities. For example, school counselors meet with all middle and high school students to review their four-year plan and discuss CCR options. CCPS and school principals also provide information to families via newsletters, outlining options and necessary steps to be eligible for these opportunities. Our school counselors use Zello, an online resource, and students can identify their interest areas and aptitude areas. Schools also offer parent nights during registration to inform parents about different programs and opportunities. 3.4.4, offer a robust CTE program for students to learn an industry-recognized credential, post-secondary certificate, or complete an apprenticeship program. Our system uses program advisory committees to engage partners and encourage them to offer work-based learning activities such as healthcare, HVAC, teaching, and culinary arts. Those are some of our strongest areas of partnership. Despite many employers being willing to engage students in our work-based learning opportunities, recruiting full registered apprenticeship partners has proven to be difficult. Many employers in Calvert County are small businesses without the manpower, capital, or even capacity to train or employ a youth apprentice. The next piece talks about equitable access and tracking. For elementary, data is reviewed regularly to determine appropriate placement for interventions and or students in need of gifted and talented services. Middle school, articulation meetings take place, and that happens at the end of 5th grade, but to then have formative and summative assessments during middle school to ensure appropriate placement. And the goal is to avoid the practice of tracking students, allowing them to be placed in an appropriate academic setting. For high school, students have access to academic honors, advanced placement, CTE, and dual enrollment courses so that they can take courses to meet their academic needs. Supports are also in place to help students, and additional supports are provided to students who are first-time AP takers, as well as students who take dual enrollment courses. For Pillar 4, more resources for students to be successful. There are 3 objectives for us for this school year: improving the education of English learners, improving education for students with disabilities, and enhancing student health services. 4.2.2 requires implementing the English Learner Workgroup recommendations and the commonly utilized methods of parent communication and involvement based on the recommendations include telephone and in-person interpretation, bilingual facilitators, English Learner Parent Leadership Academies, English Learner Parent Outreach Engagement Activities, and we also have some subscriptions in CCPS such as Transact, which provides standardized letters, forms, and documents in the languages of our families. Language Line, which is an interpreting service, and then also School Messenger, which allows messages to be translated into the language of our families. We use S'mores, which is an electronic newsletter, and then we host different family events as well. CCPS is currently investigating the hiring of an English language family coordinator as part of the requirements of the blueprint. 4.2.3, increased per pupil funding for English learners. Through the Race to the Top grant, Calvert County has over 20 classroom teachers, had over 20 classroom teachers seek to add ESOL certification to their teaching credentials. In other ways, we have used funding sources to support the English Language Development Program, include regional programs, and the Title III grant through individualized tutoring sessions. And we recognize the need to increase the number of ESOL certified teachers to then reduce the student-to-teacher ratio and continue the overall success of the ESOL program. Objective 3, 4.3.1, improve education for students with disabilities using the increased per pupil funding. Current data indicates that an increase in the number of students with disabilities being educated in the least restrictive environment for 80% or more of their day. As a result of this shift, there is a need for greater professional development, as you heard in the last presentation, around co-development, co-implementation, co-evaluation of specially designed instruction, and collaborative planning. It will also be necessary to increase the capacity of our general education teachers regarding specially designed instruction moving forward, as well as utilize funding to increase staffing and professional development in certain areas, such as proactive approaches to challenging behaviors, multi-tiered system of support, as you heard earlier this evening as well. 4.5.1, employ behavioral health coordinators. The behavioral health service coordinator is provided opportunities to participate in staff development and provided funding to attend conferences outside of the school system in an effort to provide CCPS staff with the most relevant supports to address behavioral health in our schools. 4.5.2, each local system develop a plan to enhance and expand behavioral health supports. Meeting the needs of students is critical for helping our students achieve success. So a challenge, though, that we have is a shortage in mental health professionals. So strategies to overcome these challenges have been to provide increased salaries, reimbursements for license renewal, and monies for attendance at professional development. School psychologists, for example, with nationally certified school psychologist certification, receiving a salary adjustment of $2,500. The same with social workers with an LCSWC certification. And that's pending their certifications remain in good standing. Additionally, all certified staff are annually trained in suicide prevention and trauma. Pillar 5, governance and accountability. We have 2 objectives for this year. Support blueprint implementation planning and monitor blueprint outcomes. 5.1.3 talks about the AIB and MSDE reviewing implementation plans that are submitted by districts, and they will either approve or disapprove those plans once submitted. For our response to the question about team structure and communication, Calvert County Public Schools created 5 distinct pillar subcommittee groups by selecting experienced educators and individuals with diverse experiences in education to ensure representation from a wide array of positions in the district. These individuals represent a cross-section of positions in the district to ensure voice from all facets of the LEA who have knowledge of and expertise with specific areas within the pillars of the blueprint. The subcommittee chairs scheduled regular meetings to review and examine the blueprint in preparation for writing the implementation plan. These subcommittee teams were made up of central office staff, building-based staff, district supervisors, principals, assistant principals, and we also had teachers participate and provide feedback and reached out to support staff for their input as well. Subcommittee chairs reported back to the steering committee on a regular basis to provide update progress and address current issues. The major responsibilities of the subcommittee members were to research the assigned pillar and determine how we were going to implement the requirements of the blueprint. We're also working in conjunction with the Calvert County Blueprint Committee to allow for stakeholder feedback to aid in plan and development and implementation. And I would like to just thank our committee members who are here in attendance tonight. Our steering committee also solicited volunteers from school-based principals and, as I mentioned, classroom teachers and support staff to ensure that feedback and recommendations were provided from those groups through focus groups, surveys. One challenge was accommodating school-based staff during the day for our steering committee meetings. So we are going to prioritize a different meeting structure for phase 2 of our implementation plan to better accommodate those individuals. 4.5.2 talks about monitoring and monitoring the Blueprint funding. So this is done through our finance department, where the school district finance staff have created numerous new general ledger accounts, account numbers to facilitate expenditure tracking at the school building level. In addition, costs are already being charged to and tracked in these school level expenditure accounts. In addition, finance staff will review various general ledger expenditure accounts that are currently budgeted and charged at the district level, and to the extent feasible, will create additional school level accounts to which these costs will be budgeted, tracked, and expensed. I didn't realize I didn't advance that. So that summarized the overall implementation plan responses for pillars 3 through 5. For anyone that wants to participate in a more detailed look at our implementation plan responses by pillar, we have conducted individual pillar sessions to allow community members to engage with the responses and provide feedback. We have 2 remaining. Pillar 4 is tomorrow night at 6:30 here at the central office, and Pillar 5 is Monday night, so March 10th and March 13th, and again at 6:30 at the central office. We will also make a draft of our implementation plan available to this board next week before our submission. Our submission is March 15th. Our steering committee will meet one final time before submission on Monday, where we'll have an extensive review and feedback session during that time. Any questions?
Ms. Polinsky.
Yes, thank you very much. The blueprint just, you could hear it over and over and over, the massive amount of work that needs to be done to go into planning for it. But you know what I would like, and I ran it by Dr. Townsley, he said, we need to talk about this. In discussions with I'm getting the man on the street, comes and everybody knows the name Blueprint, and people want to know, okay, I could talk in general. We want to elevate the teaching profession to be, it's hugely professional and stuff. But what I need to be able to talk about and to internalize myself is, what have we done in this year, which is one of the first years that we're really moving and shaking on the blueprint. Just bullet points, and maybe all the pillar chairs have already, can already provide this. So in fiscal year 2023, what have we actually done that's different? Because what you've listed is, we've always been out there looking to approach students to be first-time AP takers. We were always looking for counselors to talk to our students about their interest and, and things like that. And this is just points that you had brought up, that's part of the blueprint. That's what they want us to hone when we're doing when we're trying to meet their CCR goals. But is there a way to put, what's really sticks out, the ones that's the major changes that we've made, that we've been able to do because of either blueprint funding or because we're thinking in different ways or whatever. It's a blueprint requirement. What have we accomplished in 2023? And then what do we, as we go along in 2024 and the like, these are what's coming about. We already know that we got a budget that puts in the salary component part. We know about that. And we know that we're going to start paying for the dual enrollment and things like that. So those are part of it. But there's probably things that, that sort of might get lost in so much data that comes to us in these reports that would be good to talk about, and as I said, I'm just trying to internalize what the blueprint is meant. the impact the blueprint is having on our students and our teaching staff. So that's the only thing. I just appreciate the work that's being done, and I was able to participate in one of the, your blueprint meetings. Very, very good discussions going on there.
Ms. Grennis?
I also want to give a heartfelt gratitude for the individual pillar sessions. I have learned so much about the blueprint, and it's this huge beast that we have to try to wrap our heads around. And so many of you sitting here tonight are part of that, and you're putting in a lot of time with these after-school sessions, but they are so valuable in, you know, someone who really wants to understand it better. So thank you very much. I just had one or two questions I wanted to ask about. You know, the objective number 4 was provide high-quality career counseling and CTE programs. It's also part on page 5. It's a pretty generic question. How are we meeting the demands of CTA applicants? You know, my understanding is that 100 students were turned away. That, you know, these are children who are saying, I know what I want to do, and they're being left in the classroom, perhaps in an environment that isn't best suited for them. Some kids just aren't book learners. Some kids are more hands-on. How are we going to deal with accommodating more of those students who know what, you know, who know they want to be on one of those tracks?
Good evening. I'm Joe Sutton, and we have had conversations with the CTA director and principal, and this is part of implementation of the blueprint is going to be adapting to changes that this spurs. And one of those changes that we just saw was an elevation of opinion of what we can do with CTE and a corresponding raise in the number of requests we've had. So I know that in the past, Ms. Akins has had a lottery system, or she's had a system where she's always been able to get everyone either their first or second choice when they've applied to the program. This is the first time we've ever seen this much interest, and I know she's already talked about why she doesn't think this is going to be a pattern that we're going to see more and more kids not able to be included, but there are also discussions as to what will we do? How will we make sure, as we try to make sure each of our kids get into the pathway based on their desired future and not their past that they've done, how are we going to be able to get students to whatever version of success they want?
Okay. And the other question was just about those warning flags. Who fills that out? Is that something the student does, the teacher? Is this, how can you just talk about that to explain what that looks like?
Yes. So we took a look through 1,000 different data points. What happens if you get an O in second grade social studies? What about an S? What about a G? And we made a table of how predictive would it be to say that if you get an O in second grade social studies, you will graduate, and if you don't, you will not graduate. Some of them were very non-predictive, but we were able to find 9 of those flags. Just taking a look in that set of 16,000 students, we were able to find 9 of those flags that were really stunning, really compelling, that we have this data and we know all the work all of our teachers and counselors and leaders are doing, and somehow they still didn't graduate. And a lot of it has to do with what the previous group was talking about, servicing the whole child. The problem with a lot of those students was not that they didn't know how to solve an equation. The problem was they didn't see themselves as viable students. They didn't see that work was going to lead to more competence. They didn't see that this had value to them, and it was worth them putting forth the effort. So all of that put together is one of the things that has us excited about thinking differently. Now that we've done the study and we know who these students are, what are we going to do differently that is going to change something about this outcome?
Wow, that's exciting. I'm thrilled to hear that this has been, this is something that's in the works.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I'm a little disappointed that right now we're still at these kind of almost vague seeming reporting outs. But right now, up until we submit, it's been about understanding it and answering to this plan. Our next phase is going to be in building out what specifically are we going to do on the career counseling front, on the CTE front? What is our MTSS going to have to look like? That's a lot of the exciting work that is coming up once we get this submitted.
I will see you at the next meeting.
I look forward to it.
And to just piggyback on that, that is also the message that we want the community to hear that needed for phase two. When we do these community meetings, when we have these pillar sessions, the next phase of implementation is a 3-year plan. And we're asking for input because we want to know what we're going to change. How are we going to do things differently? And if we don't get the feedback, then it won't be as effective.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Any other questions? I have no questions, so thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.